Good morning. Long time no video. My face is a little swollen still, even though I'm 11 days out from having my wisdom teeth out. So I look a little weird. I apologize for that. But my mouth isn't moving the way it normally does. But I felt compelled to make this video today because I haven't been spending a lot of time on any sort of manifesting content over the last 3 or 4 months. I've been spending a lot of time on other content. And every time I duck back into the manifestation stuff, I'm just sort of confused, I guess is the right word, about why the majority of what's discussed is so surface level. It's so almost like defining what manifesting is and simplifying it to the point that it probably doesn't do anything for most people, and they just move on from it thinking it's like some kind of gimmick, when really manifesting is the explanation of how everything in your life is created. And it's not even really, the way it's talked about is so magical in nature, but I think it's really just the unexplained phenomenon of your brain creating things or your mind creating things. If you could zoom way out, you would see exactly how this works, and there's not much magic involved. And I wanted to talk about, again, I'm sure I've talked about this many times here, but I wanted to talk again about something that I personally see in my interactions with other people. And of course, I can't see myself, but in the way that you see other people, you observe other people, but I see other people really struggling with this, even if they don't realize they're struggling with it. And I try really hard. This probably is one of my number one concerns. I would prefer to be right in this area than to have any other thing. I really try to be honest with myself, and it can be really, really difficult. It can be really difficult to be honest with yourself about what you want, why you're doing things, how you really feel about other people, how you really feel about issues that affect your demographic, things like that. It can be really, really difficult because I think of this need to socially fit in with other people as really at the heart of it, and low self-esteem. People just seem to really struggle with admitting that they have flaws and taking responsibility for the things that those flaws create and the situations that are caused by these flaws. I think it's really difficult for people to understand how flawed each and every human being is. It can be really easy to exist for a really long time in this state of feeling like everyone else has their shit together and you don't. No one has their shit together. No one has their shit together. In fact, the people that seem like they have their shit together the most often have some really weird shit going on, which is both horrifying and comforting to me. As I get to a point where I feel like I have my shit together more, it's kind of comforting to me to realize that there aren't a lot of people out there that are way better, doing way better than I am. But at the same time, it's well, shit. If that puts me in the upper echelon of people who have their shit together, that's not comforting. But I think it can be really, really difficult to be honest with yourself. But if you don't do that, then the outcome of that is that you create a life that reflects a whole bunch of things you don't actually want. And if you can't even be honest with yourself about the things you want or don't want, then you end up living a life that is full of the things that you tell yourself that you want, but you have a vague feeling of being empty and unhappy, or worse. And so, I see this everywhere, and it's really shocking. The business that I'm in is It caters to retired people. And I always just kind of have this idea that, the older you get, the better you get. And it's shocking to me how many older people can't, like, an example, often because it's an older crowd who's not necessarily as internet savvy as everybody else, people will like place orders from my business and they won't realize that their browser is auto-filling in some address that isn't where they want their stuff shipped. Or they put a typo in the address, or whatever. They somehow end up getting stuff shipped to the wrong place. So we fulfill the order, my business fulfills the order, it goes to the wrong address, it's delivered to somebody. And then the person who bought the stuff will realize what they did. And it's like they absolutely cannot accept, even if it's over a matter of like $20, they absolutely cannot accept what they've done. And they'll concoct a big story about how somebody on our end changed it, or we shipped it to the wrong place, or we should have known that, they've bought from us before. We should have known where their order should go. And it turns into this big thing over a matter of $20 sometimes. It's actually often not for like large amounts. And it's shocking to me, even though it happens every time. It blows my mind from this sort of bursting my bubble of how I thought things were standpoint. I would say this happens once a week at least, where somebody just obviously cannot accept that they have made a $20 mistake. And it's like you can't, there's no reasoning. And there's a lot of these people. That's what's really shocking to me. Everybody knows some 75-year-old woman that's like a total narcissist and a nut job, but it's just shocking to me how many people they haven't gotten to the point where they have accepted that they can make a mistake and that that's okay. And so they can't even be honest with themselves about the fact that they've made a mistake. It's just like, and I know that I know that these people almost instantly snap into believing their own version of what's going on. So that's just one example that I've seen that's, awakened me a little bit to how rampant this is. Otherwise, I might not see it as much. I mean, everybody in my life is deluding themselves about something pretty regularly. I see that with basically everybody I'm close to, but I don't know what I do that about. Since this is one of my big things, I really hope I'm not doing that about anything. And I guess the question becomes, how do you start to begin that? Like, how do you begin the process of not deluding yourself anymore, of being honest with yourself? And I think it really comes down to accepting that humans have flaws. I think that's been a big lesson for me over the last year. Everything's been evolving and evolving and evolving, especially since, I was really into my business for about like 7 or 8 years. And then a little before I started this channel, I feel like everything kind of shifted into thinking more about human nature and my own nature, and looking at everything that I had created deliberately, manifested, before manifesting was like talked about the way it is now. There was a lot less discussion with others about what I was doing. There was a lot more just doing. And then I kind of, it was like sort of a post-mortem, and then examining how this happened. And, what is the manifesting thing really? Because it's not, while you can create things pretty easily without delving into the how and the why. I mean, I think eventually you get tired of that and you want to know the how and the why. Like, why is this actually happening and how am I actually creating this? And I think that's when I really started to think about all of this stuff and all of the warped ways that I was thinking about certain things that were creating, a perfect replica of that vibe in my outer world. And I think I started to get a lot more honest with myself. But this has always been, I think, a thing for me. It's always been it's always been a priority, I guess, to not, be lying to myself about what it is I want and why. The why is the really hard part, because I think for most people, the vast majority of people, it's going to come down to, I don't want this thing because I genuinely have a desire for it. I want this thing because it's what I should want, or it's because it's what I've always just been programmed to think I want, and so I'm just chasing it. And as you find that your reasons aren't very good ones, it's replaced with, well, what do I want? And that can be really difficult to figure out, because if what you seem to really want is like a total 180 from what you've been trying to get, or you've had and have been maintaining, what do you do then? But really, if you're one of those people who is in a place that is kind of low when it comes to your own self, like you feel just horrible anytime you're wrong about something, to the point that if you can, you'll lie to make it look like you're not wrong to other people. If you're in that place, like, this is, I think, where you need to really start writing everything in your world. And you can certainly manifest stuff without doing this, but the whole thing's going to be a jumbled mess if you can't accept yourself and say, I'm okay regardless of the way things are right now. I'm allowed to be wrong. This is really difficult if you've got people in your life that are shitty about this kind of thing. But it's really important, It's really hard to make, I think that, or I shouldn't say it's really hard, but it can be a long and arduous process to get to from a point where shit's all fucked up in your head about yourself, especially if you have other people that are really helping that stay that way. From that point to a point where you're just like, I'm me, this is what I want, this is how I feel about things, I'm a good person, I'm a human, so I'm flawed, I have the capacity for evil. People cannot admit to themselves that they are cut from the same cloth as everybody else here. It's like, this is a typical long and rambling video, I guess, but it's like, do people look at lions and expect that some of them will be noble and will not have any lion instincts? And, that you look at a species of animal and you can write a book on exactly how they behave and what all their habits are and everything. And people think they're different somehow. They're not. Everybody has all these same tendencies as everybody else. It's just a matter of whether or not you're exercising them. And my argument is that the more deluded you are about your own goodness, the more deluded you are about humanity, the more you have a tendency to be the exact thing that you think is disgusting in other people. I mean, anybody who is paying attention in the world right now can see that everywhere. The people that think they're the good ones are doing some pretty abhorrent shit right now. That's as political as I'm going to get on this channel ever. So, I guess this is sort of like the basics of the true nature of manifesting. If you go on any of these forums, these manifesting forums, you're going to definitely see like a handful of people that just can't wait to say, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. And I'm not sure most of those people even know what they're saying when they're saying it, but that is true. You manifest what you are, because what you are is just what creates everything. And so if you're trying to create something specific in the outer world and you haven't really like revamped who you are, it's just kind of pointless, I think. I mean, pointless from a standpoint of wasting time, if there's such a thing. Everything that you do, I mean, if you manifest something and you're not happy, it doesn't make you any happier, then that will at least lead you to understand eventually manifesting things isn't what's going to make you happy. But all of the change starts with you, with everything that's wrong in your life. If you change how how your mental processes work, there is no way that your outer can stay the same as it is right now, and there's no way that the people you have relationships with can continue to relate to you in the same way. If you're a person that can't even admit that you're wrong about something, like putting the wrong address on something and then therefore losing $20 or more, if you can't have an experience like that and say, okay, I did this, it's not the company that I bought stuff from's fault, it's my fault. They did, they fulfilled this order correctly and sent it to some other place. They don't owe me anything. I'm the one that fucked this up. And that's okay. Humans make mistakes. Humans type the wrong address in. I should have been more careful. I'll try to be more careful in the future. This could happen again, and that's okay because it's in the nature of human beings to do flawed things. It's all good. It's all right. I'm not going to die because I don't have this $20. If you can get to the point where you can do that, that's a major step. That's a major leap from a place where you can't. And there are all kinds of similar reactions to things in life that, you're just presented with opportunities to change this type of thinking and reacting all day, every day. And when you change that stuff, you find that that's sort of like the event that precipitates you having to sort of go through that mental process. That's something noticeable, but then there's all these other moments throughout the day that are not noticeable where you have that self-acceptance feeling. And it subtly changes everything else. It subtly changes your reactions to all kinds of things. And you might not even notice it until a few years down the road. You just say, wow, I'm a lot more peaceful. My reaction to things is a lot more peaceful than it used to be. And I feel a lot more peaceful than I used to feel. And I have a lot fewer moments of self-loathing than I used to have. Somebody with a self-loathing mentality versus somebody without that are going to create an entirely different lived experience for themselves. I think that the manifesting community really does people a disservice by making this sort of like a contest between like who has what stuff. Because beyond a certain point, material things don't make you happy, and you have to be living through your mental state all day, every day. And if it's not in a good place, if you're constantly chasing after some new thrill, if you're constantly chasing after some new thing, or you're constantly doing mental gymnastics to make yourself feel like, just deluding yourself into thinking it's somebody else's fault, that something just happened that you actually caused. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's a very peaceless way to live. I mentioned on this last video, I think, did I? I think I did, that I've now ended up with 2 kittens, which I was not planning on having, and I really didn't think was even a possibility because Matt was just not interested in having pets at all. I wasn't really either. Now he loves them, of course. I knew he would. But these 2 kittens just kind of got dropped on me, which was the only way this was going to ever happen. only way. I mean, I wouldn't have gone and gotten a pet on purpose. And I also thought it would be great to have like a bottle baby kitten, and so weird. So this just all played out exactly as I would have had it play out, but without the intention, at least the conscious intention. But anyway, you know, I've had this chance now. I've got these 2 kittens, and I keep thinking, this is so bizarre. It's like I'm 19 again. I got 2 kittens when I was 19, and I just keep thinking about, I've had some weird moments over the last 7 years. It's been 7 years since I had a pet. I've thought a lot about how I was when I got the last 2 kittens. I got them when I was 19, and then I was just like, man, I was such a horrible pet parent. Like, I didn't clean out their litter box enough. One big thing that like really bothered me was that I would buy like a huge bag of cat food, and I would put food in their bowl, and whatever they didn't eat, I would just throw back in the bag, mix everything up, and then put more food in the bowl, because I was completely broke when I was 20, you know? And I've always thought about that, and I'm like, that's so gross, you know? They're like, they don't have a lot going on. They have food, and they have me, and they have like playing with each other, and that's pretty much their whole life. And they have their environment. I was just like, I should have kept that cleaner. I should have just given them fresh food every time. Like, that's so gross that I just like threw their old food in there. And I can't tell you how many times over the last 7 years I've thought about that and been like, man, that's a huge regret. I know that might sound weird, but I really loved those animals. And I've just thought about that, and I was like, man, their life could have been better, and I didn't do a good enough job. Since having these kittens, I've realized that they waste so much food. And I found myself being like, this food's perfectly fine, and throwing it back in the bag. And I was like, man, you know, I just have this like tendency to look back on myself and think I did something wrong all the time. I mean, I have that all the time. I have this tendency to blame myself for stuff. If like there's any way for me to blame myself or take accountability, I do. And I'm realizing that a lot of the time it's like totally unfair to me. So there's that. That's been a positive. That's been a positive thing, because I found myself doing the exact same thing and going, wait a minute. This is probably exactly what I did back then. And I'm not doing this now because I'm lazy or don't have money. It's because it's just perfectly fine and it's wasteful. So that's a positive. But I've also realized just how disordered and all over the place my thinking was 25 years ago compared to where it is now. Which has been, you know, which is another plus. Other than that, it makes me feel bad to think that my last 2 cats didn't get the attention that these 2 are getting, or the quality of, you know, care or whatever. I've realized how all over the place my mind was back then compared to now, like in terms of just calmness and, you know, just not being able to sit still and be in the moment. Over the last like couple months, there's been some times where like, I guess it's only been a month and a half. I've had to just kind of sit there and be like, this is going to take an hour, and I have other stuff I'd rather be doing, but I'm just going to be here and be present and do this thing. And I did not have that ability back then. I did not have the ability to delay gratification for things. I didn't have the ability to just be patient and just be here. And it's been interesting to see the difference in what a couple of decades, which I know probably sounds like a lot to most people watching this. Everybody wants things to happen like right now. But the problem is a lot of things have to just be repeated over and over and over again. Like, you have to get an idea into your head about what it is, where you are right now, and where it is you want to be. And then you have to allow that to take shape over time by remaining aware of it as things happen all day, every day. So if you're somebody who like is exactly how I just described myself 20 years ago, which I'm guessing lots of people are, because I think most people are like this, it's like there's no mental calmness almost ever. If you realize that about yourself, and you sort of set the GPS on something different, you then are going to just have these same events come up day after day, and you're going to hour after hour, minute after minute, and you will then be presented with the opportunity to react differently. And you're probably at first going to succeed like 1 out of 100 times. And it just takes time for this all to shift and for you to become sort of a different person, which it seems like most people are really trying to become a different person. And I think it's interesting looking back on how different things used to be. And I know how this happened. It happened moment by moment and with a very specific intention of being different at some point. I mean, at some point, for me personally, there was a moment of just like, this has to go. And, you know, these new personality traits have to just take root somehow. And just keeping that in the forefront. If you're not willing to be honest with yourself about how you are, how could you possibly have any idea where you want to go? You know? I mean, these are all just topics that you have to think about for yourself. I don't think anybody can really teach you how to do any of this. But I'm realizing that there is actually value, I think, in me making this channel. I really haven't been very interested in it for the last few months, because this channel isn't really like any other channels, you know, in this arena, because I don't really think like you can teach this. And so taking on some kind of teacher role doesn't really appeal to me, and I don't feel qualified for that anyway. And so, you know, my thought process is always, well, if I'm not teaching anything and I'm not qualified for that, then what value is there really in just like making these videos? But I think like just talking about it helps. And I think like some people, I'm just convincing myself right now, I think some people just need to have somebody talking about this to keep them interested in thinking about it, to sort of keep them on the path, and to just maybe bring up like one idea that snaps into place. Or, you know, sometimes you just need to be exposed to something and you totally reject it when you hear it, or you totally reject the messenger, or you just, I don't know, you rail against it really hard, and then in that you go, why am I reacting so violently to this? Or, you know, I don't know. You hear something, you totally reject it, but it kind of makes its way in there, and then at some point in the future, you have a moment where there's a little subtle connection made between that thing that you heard and something that you just experienced that you're thinking about. And that's how these things start to sort of take shape. I've been consuming a lot of content over the last few months from certain people, and I found myself repeatedly thinking, I'm so glad these people make so much content. Like, I get up every day, I go for a really long walk every morning, and I listen to a few different people, not related to anything having to do with manifesting, having to do with other stuff. And yeah, I found myself saying, it is really great that these guys make content. Like I think that I've got a handful, like 10 people that I listen to, and I mean, they put out like 5 videos a week or something. It's just so great. And it's like, nothing much changes day to day. It's mostly the same talking points and the same thoughts. But if you're interested in a topic that you don't know a lot about, you don't just listen to 5 videos about it and then you're educated. It's like you only pick up on certain things when you listen to people talk about stuff, and you could go back and listen to the same thing a year later and you realize you missed 90% of it, and now new things are standing out to you. And so I think there is value in talking about this. I've been considering just sort of like opening my camera or turning on my camera every morning and just like recording 30 minutes or something, so that you know, people can have something to listen to in this area, and a lot of the time I talk about stuff that's not really all that related to the actual, like, you know, I don't know, everybody else is just like, here's how you make something happen. But yeah, my real topic of interest is like the person and the mental stuff that creates everything other than these like specific things that you want. And the really annoying part of really wanting to create something specific and not being able to do it. Like, that is where all of the other stuff comes in. That's where all of the, who are you? Who are you in relation to this thing? And what are your beliefs in relation to this thing? That's what I find really interesting. But yeah, so I'm thinking about just starting to make a video every day so that people know there's going to be something there. So if they want to be sort of kept on this topic, then they can be. But I think it runs the risk of getting a little repetitive and boring them. But you know what? I don't mind it. I really don't mind the repetitive boringness of the people that I listen to, because I like them. So, and amazingly to me, there are apparently 14,000 people that like this channel. That's really blowing my mind. My channel just got 14,000 subscribers as of like a couple days ago. That's really weird to me. That seems like a lot. I remember when I was first doing this, I saw Caleb, what the hell is his channel's name? I'm having like such memory issues lately. I saw Caleb's channel and I was like, holy shit, he has 1,600 subscribers. Holy crap, he's like big. So, yeah. But I got my wisdom teeth out as a proactive measure, as a prophylactic measure, because I'm getting concerned that there are going to be shortages in the world. So I figured that I better get my wisdom teeth out so that I don't necessarily need antibiotics at some inopportune moment. And of course I'm having like every complication that could come from it. I didn't even know complications could happen with wisdom teeth, but I got a little touch of the Bell's palsy over here. Can't move this area of my face. My oral surgeon said in 34 years he's never seen anybody get Bell's palsy from getting their wisdom teeth out, but I'm one of the lucky ones. And then I got a little thing between my sinus and my socket over here where I was gargling, or I was like rinsing with salt water, and it came shooting out my nose. So there's that, and now I'm on like some super antibiotic. And yeah, life is grand, but I recommend taking proactive measures and not just sitting around and waiting for things to happen to you, despite the fact that things happen that way. I mean, I had 2 kittens dropped on my lap. How weird is that? How bizarre is that? One in my aunt's backyard and one in my brother's backyard. I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't try to manifest it though. And that's what's so crazy about all this shit. And that's the part that I'm not sure we're ever gonna figure out on our own. Now that I have these 2 kittens, I'm like, I love them, and I can't, you know, I'm back to understanding why you would want to have a pet. Before I was just like, God, it's such a pain in the ass. How do you even know you would like the kitten that you got? You know what I mean? I was just like, all the downsides of pet ownership. I just never would have done it again. Now I have these 2, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's so much better when you have pets. Life is so much better when you have pets in so many ways. I love these guys. When I don't see them for like 2 hours, I miss them and I want to go see them. They're so adorable. Oh my God. And that happened without me intending for it. You know, I got my house for a great deal. That happened without me specifically intending for it. It's like, if this is a sim and you're creating it all, you already know what you want. A lot of this stuff doesn't need to be specific. But I still think that you need to do, you didn't come here to just sit here and have stuff dropped on you. You know, part of this is actively playing the game that you're just deciding to play. So yeah, I went and had my wisdom teeth yanked out. I don't think they were just gonna levitate out of my mouth without me doing anything. Anyway, have a great day.